World U exams are an important component of achieving mastery. Short-term exams and long-term exams are available to students enrolled in the Basic Plus program, the Basic Extended program, or the accredited school. There are several steps associated with taking exams, and these steps ultimately lead to a subject being complete. The first step in taking exams is actually answering flashcards. If a student has any flashcards that have not been answered, or that were marked Show Again today, no exams will be given for that subtopic. At Free World U, we don't give quizzes or exams because it's Friday, or because we don't have enough scores in our gradebook, or because it's the end of a marking period. We give our assessments when our students tell us they're ready to be tested. If a student has not answered a flashcard, we don't expect that student to be able to correctly answer an exam question about the information taught on the flashcard. And if a student answers a flashcard by choosing Show Again today, the student is telling us, I don't think I can remember this tomorrow, so keep it in my deck for practice right away. We wouldn't expect the student to know the answer to a question testing that flashcard information either. When all of the flashcards in a subtopic have been marked as Show Again on a different day, the student is saying, I believe I can remember this information for at least one day. So in one day, we'll give a short-term exam to check. When students are comfortable with our system, they answer the flashcards honestly and with a good understanding of their own level of comprehension. They become very good at deciding just how well they know individual flashcards. And they quickly learn that it's a waste of their own time to rush through flashcards just to have them marked as 100% complete on the subject review page. Because when they rush through a subtopic, they won't do well on the next day's short-term exam and will then have to answer all of those flashcards again. 24 hours after the last flashcard in a subtopic has been marked to be shown again on a different day, or never, a short-term exam for that subtopic is automatically prepared for that student. All of the questions on a short-term exam test the information presented in that same subtopic. The short-term exams are pass, not pass. They should be thought of as a quick quiz to confirm learning. If a student really can remember all of a subtopic's information for at least one day, then the short-term exam should be pretty simple and the student will answer all questions correctly. If a student answers all short-term exam questions correctly, he or she may still review all or part of that subtopic at any time, but review is not required. However, if a student does not answer all of the questions on a short-term exam correctly, then the student has not fully learned one or more of the pieces of information taught in the subtopic. If any short-term exam questions are answered incorrectly, that subtopic is automatically reset, and the student is required to answer all of its flashcards again. When a student answers every question on a short-term exam correctly, that subtopic moves into the final phase of mastery. Questions for that subtopic are reserved to be included in a later long-term exam. As the name implies, questions on long-term exams check whether or not a student has been able to commit the learned information to long-term memory. Questions on a long-term exam assess a variety of subtopics and may include questions from different subjects. Students may feel confident because they have already been tested on this same material in a short-term exam and had done well. If a student answers a long-term exam question incorrectly, he or she should take a moment to try to figure out why the chosen answer was incorrect and what the correct answer should have been. While we encourage students to review the subtopics related to any missed long-term exam questions, unlike with short-term exams, review is not required when a question is missed on a long-term exam. Each long-term exam question must be answered correctly on 2 consecutive exposures before the information tested with that question is considered learned. When a student correctly answers a question on a long-term exam, FreeWorldU's program remembers what fact was tested, and when it is tested again if the student answers correctly, that question is taken out of the queue for future exams, because that was the second correct answer in a row. If a student incorrectly answers a question on a long-term exam, the program remembers that as well, and questions about that fact must be answered correctly twice in a row sometime in the future in order to be removed from the exam question queue. Just as each individual long-term exam question must be correctly answered twice in a row in order to be considered complete and removed from future long-term exams, a subtopic is only considered mastered when every one of the long-term exam questions associated with that subtopic have been answered correctly twice in a row. When all of a subtopic's tested facts have been taken out of the long-term exam question queue because they have been correctly answered on 2 consecutive long-term exams, the subtopic is mastered, and a green asterisk is displayed in the mastery column of the subject review for that subject. The student will not take any more exam questions associated with that subtopic. When each subtopic in a subject is mastered, then the subject itself is mastered, and the student earns an A. FreeWorldU exams may be accessed 2 different ways. One of these ways is by clicking the exam portal link, found on the student homepage and also under the Registered Students menu on the main navigation bar. There are 4 category links on the exam portal. The top category is overdue short-term exams. Because short-term exams are specifically designed to test short-term recall of information, they need to be taken within 1 to 2 days after all of a subtopic's flashcards are answered with a response other than "Show again today." If short-term exams are not taken within 2 days of becoming available, they become overdue. Once the short-term exam is overdue, students are then given an additional 3 days to complete the exam, or its associated subtopics will be reset, and the student must then re-answer each of the subtopics flashcards to create a new short-term exam. If there are any subtopics listed under the overdue short-term exams category on the exam portal, that means their exams have been available for more than 2 days, and the subtopics are in danger of resetting. These exams must be treated as the highest priority so their subtopics do not reset. The second category on the exam portal is current short-term exams. These are exams that are still within their 2-day window for optimum assessment of short-term recall. These exams should be taken once any overdue exams are completed. Short-term exams are listed by their breadcrumbs, so students know exactly what the assessment will cover. They are accessed by clicking on the breadcrumb for the desired exam, such as middle school, 8th grade mathematics, algebra, multiplying with binomials. The third category is long-term exams. If there is a number displayed, long-term exam questions are available to be completed. This exam portal shows 95, which means this student has 95 questions from the long-term exam queue that are currently ready to be completed. The final link on the exam portal is Last Viewed Flashcard. If there are any exams ready to be taken, they will automatically be served to the student when Last Viewed Flashcard is clicked. If no exams are ready, then clicking Last Viewed Flashcard will load the most recent flashcard studied by the student. The second way to access exams is by clicking Last Viewed Flashcard on the main navigation bar. This Last Viewed Flashcard link works the same as the Last Viewed Flashcard link on the exam portal. If there are any exams ready to be served, one will be served to the student each time the student clicks Last Viewed Flashcard. When no exams remain, clicking Last Viewed Flashcard will bring the student to the most recent flashcard studied. As with flashcards, FreeWorldU exam cards also contain links to play Super Learning music and to send feedback. Students are strongly encouraged to review subtopics independently if they miss any exam questions. However, if the student is very confused, then the feedback link may be used to obtain assistance. Typically, one of FreeWorldU's teachers will help the student find the subtopic in which that information is taught, so the student can discover his or her error. Just as feedback is not used for students to answer flashcards, students should not submit answers to exam cards via feedback either, unless they're asking a question about that exam card. The top of the exam card shows the total number of exam cards in the current exam and which question is being shown at that time. This is the first exam card out of 11 total in this exam. Do remember, a student may have multiple exams ready, so there may be more exam questions than just those contained in the current exam. The bottom left of the exam card shows statistics for this current exam. This exam contains 11 exam cards. Currently 0 have been answered correctly and 0 have been answered incorrectly. We'll watch what happens to these statistics after we answer this question. All FreeWorldU exams are multiple choice. As with answering flashcards, students need to read exam card questions very carefully. FreeWorldU recommends students formulate an answer before reading the possible answer choices. Students should then carefully read the 4 choices. Some answers may be similar or may correctly relate to other information taught in the same subtopic as the information being tested. It is important that the answer chosen by the student specifically addresses the question being asked on that exam card. When the student has decided upon an answer, he or she should click the radio button beside the selected answer. After clicking the Selected Answers radio button and rechecking the answer if desired, the student will click Submit Answer at the bottom of the exam card. Exam scoring at FreeWorldU is instantaneous. The moment the student submits an answer to an exam question, the student learns if the answer was correct or incorrect. That way, not only will the student know whether or not he or she learned the information taught, but also exactly what information may need reviewed with extra care. If an exam question was answered correctly, then the word correct appears under the selected answer choice. After reviewing whether or not the selected answer choice was correct, the student will click Next Question at the bottom of the exam card to load the next question in this exam. We can see from the left side of the exam card that we are now looking at the second question out of 11 questions total in this exam. The statistics at the bottom show us that 1 question has now been answered correctly and none have been answered incorrectly. As with any exam question, the student should read this question carefully and formulate an answer. The student will then select the best answer choice and click the Submit Answer button. This time, the student's selected answer was not correct, shown by the Review is Needed phrase underneath the selected answer choice. When a question is answered incorrectly, students should remember to take a moment to figure out what mistake may have been made. In this case, letters verifying enrollment and official transcripts are 2 of the features of the accredited school that are not offered to students enrolled in the Basic Extended program. Now that the mistake has been identified, the student will click Next Question and continue answering questions to complete the exam. We can see from the left side of this exam card that this is the final exam card in the exam, number 11 out of 11 total. The statistics at the bottom show that 9 prior questions have been answered correctly, and 1 question has been answered incorrectly. As with the other exam questions, it is important to carefully read the question, formulate an answer, and then select the best answer choice. When the answer choice has been selected, the student will click Submit Answer. The selected answer choice was correct. The statistics show that of the 11 questions included in this exam, 10 were answered correctly and 1 was answered incorrectly. Since this is the final question in the exam, instead of a Next Question button, the button at the bottom of the card reads Show Score. The final step in completing this exam is for the student to click Show Score. The student is presented with verification that the exam is recorded as complete. The student is also presented with a summary of the exam statistics. The number of questions contained in the exam, as well as a total of questions answered correctly and incorrectly, is listed. Additionally, if the exam was a long-term exam, it will tell the students the percentage of questions answered correctly. For students of the Basic Extended program and the accredited school, this percentage will be recorded on the Monitoring Parent dashboard and on the progress reports. It is very important for students and parents to have an accurate understanding of how well students know the material they are studying. Several days or even a week later is too long for a student to wait to find out that something he or she thought was clear isn't really clear after all. Knowing whether answers are correct or incorrect the moment an exam is taken allows the student to correct any misconceptions and fill in any gaps in learning before they become ingrained. If a student misses any short-term exam questions and then answers all of that subtopic's flashcards again as show again on a different day or never, the short-term exam cycle resets, and 24 hours later, another short-term exam for that subtopic will be available. When the student is finished reviewing the exam score summary, he or she will click OK, and then will automatically be taken back to the student homeroom.